Wow.
And in that note, in my ear, I just heard Anne-Marie is back.
Now, Anne-Marie, do you hear us? Anne-Marie, do you hear us?
I hear you all the way across the pond. I think they hear you in Australia.
The beauty of technology. People, this is not an easy job. Okay, Anne-Marie, we're gonna throw it to you right now. I know that you are, 5 hours ahead. Okay, what is happening now that, if you can bring us up to speed, what is happening now in London with the Queen's body? And also King Charles, is he there?
Okay, well, first of all, I'll start at the end there. So behind me is Buckingham Palace. The sun is just coming down. The Royal Standard is not there. The Union Jack is there. It's at half-mast, so we know that King Charles is not here at Buckingham Palace. In fact, we saw the helicopter leave from the back lawn, and then we saw the Rolls-Royce that he travels in without the Royal Standard. In fact, the car was empty, so we had confirmation there that the King was not there. Right now, the Queen's coffin is at Westminster, where the public is finally being allowed to walk through. They average around 2,500 people an hour that they want to let through. And you've probably been watching this footage as well. People mourning and saying goodbye in their own ways. Some people curtsing, some bowing, some pausing for just a moment. But overwhelmingly, we hear people say, thank you. We see it on the cards and the notes that are left at Green Park. We hear it when we talk to people on the street. They're so appreciative of how she did her duty. And we hear that word duty a lot. And in fact, to some people, it's given them a real sense of peace. They've described her as a mother and as a grandmother, and it gave them a peace to know that she was working right up until the end, because they said that's who she was.
Now, are they going to actually keep Westminster open like 24 hours to let these crowds and crowds of people come through?
Absolutely. 24 hours is how long it will be open. Listen, they're expecting 350,000 people to come through. They'll get a bracelet that will indicate when they can get in, and then when they run out of bracelets, you can't get there. They were expecting probably 1 million people that wanted to come and see the Queen at Westminster, but they'll average about 350,000 people will go through, and in order for that to happen, they have to leave it open 24 hours a day. It will finally close the day of her funeral on the Monday, very early in the morning, just after 6 o'clock.
Anne-Marie, you mentioned earlier that people were saying the word duty, and you know, you've been talking to them. So is there a story that you've heard in particular from some of the mourners outside the palace that has resonated with you? Can you share one?
Yeah, you know, was interesting. This came up over and over again at various locations over the last couple of days. People bring up the example of her during the pandemic. And when she said this phrase, and people repeat this phrase, "we'll be together again," they said it made them feel teary because they'd been in lockdown, they'd been in their homes, they were feeling hopeless. And when the Queen said, "we will be together again," that sparked hope for so many people. The other story that you guys will appreciate is you've probably watching this narrative of Paddington Bear. In the Queen's Jubilee, she was part of this sketch that was done with Paddington Bear, where he pulled out a marmalade sandwich and she pulled one out of her famous black bag, and he looked at her and he said, "Thank you, ma'am." And that sketch people love because the Queen had to act in that sketch, right? I mean, there's no Paddington Bear, so they knew she was talking to a green screen, which meant she was taking direction. She was in on the joke. She was willing to act. She was willing to put herself out there in that way, and they so appreciated that.
So, Anne-Marie, there's obviously a lot of love that you're feeling out there in the UK, but there, you know, let's face it, there are a lot of people out there who aren't fans of the monarchy. Are you seeing a presence there of them as well, or are they kind of steering clear?
We saw that early on in Scotland and in Edinburgh, and there was some police activity there. We don't see it anywhere here. There is an argument to be made that isn't being allowed, but there's also the argument to be made that there are so many hundreds of thousands of people who want to come and pay their respects that's what they are being allowed to do, and being allowed to do that freely. And then for people who this doesn't clock and register, remember, you know, London right now, they're dealing with a cost of living crisis. That's the other headline that's here. So a cab driver that we had last night, I was asking him, he said, "What are you in town for?" And I said, "For the Queen's funeral." He goes, "Oh yeah, right." So it's not tracking with everybody, but it is certainly tracking, right?
It's funny, yeah.
But it is certainly tracking with hundreds of thousands of people.
Well, Anne-Marie, thank you so much. I'm glad we made this work all the way across the pond. Thanks for joining us. It was great to see you.
Me too. Mel, you would love it.
And so we want to remind you that CTV News will be broadcasting the state funeral for Queen Elizabeth II. That's live on Monday, September the 19th. That begins at 5 a.m. Eastern.
Hey there, wasn't that great? Do you know where you can find some equally good content? Our YouTube page. It's filled with discussions, debates, and some laughs. Head there now, like and subscribe.